Hey everyone, Josh Baldwin with Vegan Fit here. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that comes up a lot with clients, which is cheat meals or cheat days or whatever you want to call it. So let's talk about this. First off, let's get this straight about the cheat meal versus the cheat day thing. So a cheat meal is acceptable, right? It's totally fine. A cheat day is not a good idea under any circumstance. So the biggest difference there is, a cheat meal is going to set you back a little bit. I'm going to get more into detail on that in a second, but a cheat day is going to it could ruin a whole week for you easily. Now, depending on your body's ability to, burn fat, your metabolism, a lot of different other factors, it may influence you in different ways. But I know for me, if I were to have a cheat day where I just went crazy and didn't work out or anything, man, that could set me back, 5, 6, 7 days easily. So definitely don't do cheat days, but cheat meals are okay. You just got to figure out a couple different factors there on when to eat them, what to eat, and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about that for a second. So what's really so bad about a cheat meal? Well, it depends on what is in the cheat meal. If you're getting a lot of, let's say, a lot of carbs or a lot of sugar, that's not such a big deal because most likely, especially if you work out that day, you can burn most of that off and it's not really going to set you back a whole lot. Sure, some of it's not going to get burned if you eat a huge cheat meal with lots and lots of carbs. So you'll end up storing some of that as fat and it might set you back a day or two, but it's not going to really ruin your progress but so much. Now, if that same cheat meal was more fat focused, let's say that it was a lot of saturated fat, like especially for non-vegans out there, lots of cheese and dairy and stuff like that. But even for us as vegans, if you're eating a bunch of sodium and tons of bad fats, well, that is definitely going to set you back. Now, how much is that going to set you back and what does that mean? Well, let's talk about that now. So what I mean by set you back, okay, that basically means losing some progress from the process of getting lean here. So let's say you're trying to lose 20 pounds. You're trying to, see your abs and all that kind of stuff. Well, let's say you've got some slightly visible abs. Well, if you have a big cheat meal and it's really bad, it's probably going to take you 3, maybe even 4 days to get looking like you did before you had that cheat meal. Now, everyone's different with that. That can vary quite a bit. But for me personally and for a lot of my clients, that seems to be about the case. Now, that means if you have a giant, huge cheat meal that's really, really bad for you, and then you have another one 3 days later, and another one 3 days later, you're just not going to make any actual progress because you're going to keep taking a couple steps forward, a couple steps back. But if you really feel like you need this giant, terrible for you, high-fat cheat meal, let's say once a week, well, at least you're going to get 3 or 4 days of progress. Even though you're going to get set back 3 or 4 days, you are making progress every week. You might not be making the nice 7-day progress we want to make, where every single week, all you do is progress and you get leaner and leaner and leaner. But you are making progress, and that's kind of the main point here. So watch out for that 2 cheat meal a week type of thing. And if you're going to do a cheat meal like that, keep it controlled. There's no reason for your cheat meal to be this crazy all-out tons of fat. If you're going to go get some pizza, have a couple pieces of pizza. That is not going to set you back 3 or 4 days. But if you get in the mood that day to crush an entire pizza by yourself with all kinds of crap on it, that's going to set you back 3 or 4 days. So that's what you want to work out when you're thinking about these cheat meals, is figuring out what meals are worth it. That's the next point I want to talk about. So is this cheat meal that you're having really worth it? That's one thing you should value a lot when you're trying to get lean, trying to get abs and all that kind of stuff, is are these cheat meals worth it? Some cheat meals, they might be good, but are they great? Because if it's just pretty good, the healthy food that you eat should be pretty good as well. So why are you eating that over the healthy food? The cheat meals you eat, you should, in my opinion, the ones I eat, like let's say if I'm going to go to WPA or I'm going to go to Harrison Street or whatever, I'm going to go get this meal that I think is awesome. I'm going to leave there going, man, that was crazy good. I'm not going to leave there going, well, that was okay. That was worth me wrecking a few days of progress. Definitely, definitely not. I want to leave there thinking, man, that was such a great meal, such a good experience that, you know what, it set me back 3 days, but it was totally worth it. That's what I want to feel like. So make sure when you do your cheat meals, make it count. If you feel like you've got to have that cheat meal, just make sure it's something you really enjoy and make it count. And if it's not, don't do it, right? Save it for another day. Don't just go out there and get something just because it's your cheat day or your cheat meal time. Make sure it's something you really want. So that's the main thing we're going to talk about, guys, is understanding how these meals affect your progress. So just Keep that in mind when you cheat. Just know there's nothing wrong with doing it, but just know what you are doing, okay? Understand why you're maybe not getting the progress that you want because you're making these big cheat meals, especially if you're having something every day. I have a lot of clients who have that problem where pretty much every single day they're eating something that's not very good for them, okay? A little bit here or there is not the end of the world, but if you're gonna have a handful or a couple hundred calories of something that's really not good for you, something that will cause you to, gain fat, store carbs that you're not gonna be able to burn, those kind of things, that's not good. You shouldn't be having that every day for sure. Try to keep 90% of your diet in check, and then every 3 or 4 days or once a week if you really can, that's the best, have a cheat meal. Don't worry about it so much. But don't go every 3 days and have some huge cheat meal, right? If you can only make it 3 or 4 days, keep it small, keep it controlled, be smart about things. But if a cheat meal to you is this giant, huge meal, and that's what it has to be for you, just keep it under control, maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks would be even better. Get more progress before you set yourself back again. Now, obviously, if you're bulking or just trying to get bigger, none of this is going to affect you that much. Sure, you might gain a little bit of excess fat. It's not as big a deal, but trust me, if you guys are trying to get lean and lose that last 10 pounds in the midsection where you can see your abs, but you really want them to pop, you cannot have these giant cheat meals. Again, unless you have some phenomenal genetics and you're really blessed. Most of us, that's not the case. We have to kind of really watch what we eat. So let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments section. This is a pretty complicated issue. There's so much more I could talk about with this stuff, but if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll definitely make another follow-up to this and talk more about how food really affects the body. And I'll see you guys at the next video.
Shut down.